Okay, everybody, we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody, to our seminar series at the University of San Francisco. This seminar series is presented by and sponsored by the Data Institute. Our speaker today is Nick Singh, who's the author of the best-selling book, Ace the Data Science Interview. He's also the founder of the SQL interview platform, Data Lemire. Today, he'll share his tips for solving SQL, stats, ML, and case study questions, as well as job hunting pointers. Nick has previously worked at Facebook, Google, and other ML-related companies. Can we give a round of applause?
Thanks for that introduction, Victor. I'm really excited. Excited to talk to all y'all. A lot of love for SF. I used to live in the Mission for 3 years before COVID, then moved back to East Coast. And before that, I lived in Palo Alto for a year as well. So a lot of love for California and the Bay Area and SF. So really excited to be here. Let me have Victor, can I have screen sharing permissions real quick? And then we can start. Should have tested that. My bad. There we are. Cool. Y'all can see my screen? Yeah.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Perfect. Oops. Let's start at the beginning. Beginning would be a good place to start. Awesome. Let's get into it. Thanks again, everyone. About myself, worked at a variety of tech companies. In school, I studied systems and information engineering, which is kind of like operations research, kind of like industrial engineering. This is before data science was really even a big thing. So there was no, master's of data science program at UVA back then, let alone an undergraduate program. So it's really cool to see data science grow. Most recently, I worked at a geospatial analytics company called SafeGraph that did a lot of work with GPS data and cell phone data and kind of aggregate and anonymize that data and help companies, hedge funds get insights about the physical world. Like, what are the stores people go to in aggregate? What are the retailers people visit and shop at? And how people are reacting to stay-at-home orders throughout all the COVID stuff. But the best thing I've done in my career is I used to DJ, mixed Bollywood and hip-hop music. I'm a Drake's #1 fan also, certified lover boy through and through. Been a Drake fan since like 2008, which is like, what, 15 years ago now. So you might be thinking, Nick, what does DJing and Drake have any to do with data science? But trust me, it has everything to do with what we're going to talk about today. I wrote the book Ace the Data Science Interview. It's a #1 bestseller on Amazon. Y'all should check it out. I also run Data Lemire, a free SQL interview platform with 70 real SQL questions you can go practice on today. This is my co-author, Kevin. He worked on Wall Street. Before that, he was a data scientist on Facebook groups. These days, he's doing crypto stuff because he loves the combo of the engineering, the Wall Street finance type stuff. So he's a crypto guy now. What we're going to talk about is not just the technical interview process. We're also going to talk about how do we get more interviews in the first place? Because I understand, like, times are tough, sort of a recession, a lot of hiring freezes, people are getting laid off left and right. So we're going to talk about the technical interview process, but also we're going to just talk about job hunting in general. Like, we can't ignore that because we got to get the interviews in the first place if we want to ace them. Yeah, this is me from high school DJing. That's me. This is actually Neck of the Woods. If anyone knows it, it's in the inner Sunset or outer Sunset. It's like a live music place. So I was DJing a party at the Neck of the Woods. I don't know if anyone's been there, but yeah, I think I have really good music taste. I mean, I can spot trends. I'm early to a lot of musicians, but no one likes it when I say that because everyone's like, "Yo, no, I have good music taste," or "I doubt you have good music taste." Everyone's always doubtful that other people could have good music taste because everyone loves their own music, right? So I was like, look, trust me that I'm good with spotting trends and upcoming artists. Like, I think I have some Midas touch with knowing who's coming up. So I was like, can I make a game to quantify my ability to spot trends in music? quantify my ability to know who's a hot up and coming rapper and then who's going to fall off, right? So inspired by seeing my friends play fantasy football at the University of Virginia, I thought, could I build fantasy football, but for hip hop? Could I almost build sort of like a stock market, but for rappers? So that was called rap stock. And you could kind of long an artist like Drake, short an artist like Kanye West. And the data was coming from Spotify. So in real time, I was pricing these artists just like you could price a stock. So it allowed people to kind of taste make and show off to their friends that they could pick upcoming artists that are going to blow up soon before other people could do that. So things went well. It went viral on Reddit, but there was one big problem, which was that people would sign up and then after like a few days, they would churn. They wouldn't come back and update their picks. Right. And the game wouldn't work. It's like fantasy football. It wouldn't work if everyone just quit playing, or, you just make your fantasy team and you just let it ride. You have to keep checking it, keep making trades, keep doing things. So I was really struggling in my dorm room to figure out, why are people churning out of my site? And how do I bring them back onto Rapstock? So that kind of led me into this niche called growth engineering or growth hacking, which is this niche between data, software, and marketing, where you kind of do a lot of A/B testing and product experimentation work around your marketing funnel to figure out, hey, what are the different features we can add? What are the different things we can do that can make measurable improvements to retention, our user acquisition stats, our monetization, things like that. So I kind of found myself in this little weird niche where I got to combine my data skills with my software skills with my kind of interest in marketing, business, just everything, So after I discovered growth engineering and I implemented some of that on Rapstock, I got to 2,000 monthly active users. But more importantly, I figured out that I like this niche and that's what I want to do after graduation. So that led me to work on Facebook's growth engineering team. And Facebook's growth engineering team is basically using data, A/B testing their way towards the next billion users. So when I took this photo, I think Facebook had about 2.3 billion users. And now they're at over 3. And they got that way at that scale with so many users, you can just measure everything. So it came there in a very data-driven way. So I got to be part of that team and learn a lot about A/B testing, learn a lot of SQL, coded up some features. And a lot of people say, like, Nick, that seems like a really too good to be true story. Like, you were interested in growth engineering and you got a job on Facebook's growth engineering team. Like, how do you manage that? Like, how'd that happen? And to be honest, y'all, I got lucky, right? I got lucky that, hey, I was able to ace their technical interview process. I did get lucky that they even called me for an interview, but I'd also like to think that part of the reason why I was even selected to interview at Facebook, why my hiring managers liked me, why all the recruiters liked me, was because I was able to tell them this convincing story that, look, in my dorm room, I'm already working on growth engineering. I'm already using data to improve the user acquisition funnel of Rapstock, which is basically the same kind of work I got to do at Facebook. So I was able to make this very convincing case. So sure, I got lucky to interview, and yes, I got to, maybe they asked easy questions or whatever, or maybe I studied hard, so I was able to pass the interview process. But a lot of it, I would like to think, was because of this portfolio project, clearly demonstrating my passion and my skills, which align so neatly with their company. But the thing is, another interesting aspect of this is, sure, Facebook has a growth engineering team, but this story about how I did growth and it led me to Facebook, I got to say that same story at Airbnb, Snapchat, and Uber, because these 3 companies, they also have growth engineering teams. They also use data to help you book more stays at Airbnb, send more snaps, book more rides on Uber. So even though I got to work on Facebook's growth engineering team, that was a great story. And that's how I got interviews at these 3 companies as well. Now at Apple, they're not really as big into this growth stuff, but they're really big on building for consumers. I mean, they have the world's most favorite consumer product, the iPhone, and they're one of the most beloved brands in the world for a reason by consumers. So I told Apple, like, look, I don't want to be doing that boring back-end bullshit. Like, I want to be building for people, right? I love consumer technology. Apple is the kings when it comes to consumer technology. I want to work there. What did I tell Spotify? How do I talk my way into Spotify? Well, I said, listen, I'm a DJ. I literally use your data on Rapstock. Everyone else claims that they're passionate about music. but you can literally see my track record and my career. I don't just say I'm passionate about music. You can see that I use data around music and I've done these projects and I've been DJing. So why would I work on these boring, Snapchat or Airbnb or Facebook? Obviously, the dream company for me is Spotify, right? So again, that's how I'm able to break in at Spotify. And what I tell at Stripe, the credit card transaction company, I said, listen, I forgot all about the music stuff, right? What did I tell Stripe? I said, listen, I love fintech. I mean, I built a stock market in my dorm room. Who's doing that? Nobody's doing that, right? So obviously, I love engineering, I love data, and I love fintech. That's why I built my own little stock market thing, because I love those stock market games, and I want to do something there. And of course, Stripe is a great place to work at. So that's why I want to work here too, because clearly you can see my interest in financial technologies, data, and software. That's the magic that happens when you have one good portfolio project, right? Because you don't know which company will lead you to. You don't know what you'll discover from doing a good portfolio project or how it'll help you. But certainly one good meaty portfolio project can be used in so many different ways at multiple companies. Now, it's not enough though to just build a portfolio project. Like, companies need to know you exist. Companies need to know that you built this thing, right? So earlier I mentioned at Airbnb and Snapchat, the way I got interviews there without any connections. I didn't know anyone there. There were really no alumni working there because this was back in 2016. Both Snapchat and Airbnb were much smaller companies. I went to the University of Virginia. We're out on the East Coast. Like, I just didn't know anyone there to help me out. So I just shot the hiring manager and recruiters at these companies a cold email pitch. See, I didn't know them, so that's why it's cold. It's not through a referral. It's not like a warm introduction. It's cold. And I sent them this short pitch on who I am, what I've done, why I'm so interested in working on Airbnb and Snapchat's growth team, links to Rapstock. And yeah, it worked out. They were able to give me interviews and start the interview process. And it's not just at these companies, it worked out for me. There's also the story of how I got my job at SafeGraph, again, through cold email. So let me show you, this is not the world's best cold email. I sent it a while back. It's been about 5 years. So it's not the world's best cold email, but it worked. I sent it on July 15th, 2018 at 2:30 a.m. I'd just been out partying, probably in the Mission. This is when I lived still in Palo Alto. So I think me and my friends, we'd gone out to the Mission, I think, or Polk Street. If anyone remembers Playland, I don't know if any locals are there or know about Playland. I think it's gone now because of COVID, but I think we were out on either Polk Street or in the Mission. Anyways, I wasn't loving my job at Facebook, to be honest. So I saw this random company pop up in my email hiring for chief of staff. So I was like, wait, chief of staff? That's the kind of a role that combines a little bit of business with technical things. And it was at this very data sciencey ML company called SafeGraph, which was all about data sets for physical places. So I wrote the guy, Oren, a cold email, and I didn't know him. You see in the to line, I'm literally guessing his email because he's the CEO. I was like, it's either oren@safegraph.com or oren.hoffman. Let me just guess and put both of them in the CC. And if one bounces, it bounces, who cares? So I wrote to him and said, hey, look, Oren, I'm really data driven. I built some projects, but I also know some business stuff. And I've taken a lot of data science classes and machine learning classes. Like, you won't find someone like me. Come talk to me. Like, I'd love to, I'd love to work for you all. And the next day he got back to me. And a week later we start interviewing. A week later, I'm doing my on-site interviews. I think a week later I have my offer. I put in my notice. And then about 2 weeks later, I'm working at this company. So basically between July 15th at 2:30 a.m., between that night and working at this company for this guy where I worked for nearly 2 years, it was just 6 weeks. I share this not to mislead you all and say, hey, you know what? If you send a cold email, for sure it'll land in a job offer. No, not at all. Most of your cold emails do get ignored. Or if they reply, they're like, hey, thanks, but a little bit busy now. Or they say, hey, you know what? Our company's not really hiring, but we'll keep in touch. It doesn't always work. But the thing is, I don't need 50 jobs. I don't need 100 jobs. I don't need 50 internship offers. I just need one company to take a chance on me. So when you send a cold email, you don't know which one is going to hit, but when it hits, it changes your life, right? Because this got me to SafeGraph, where I got to do a variety of roles for 2 years and go on Fox News, CNN, NPR as like a 25-year-old at that point. So yeah, one cold email can change your life. and most of them don't turn into anything, but when they do, that's your way to kind of out network people and break in to roles that you otherwise might not be considered for. Because let's be honest, y'all, like y'all apply on LinkedIn, right? And Indeed, and there's like 100, 200 applications for like one job, and the job's been open for like a day or like 8 hours, and you can already see like 50 people have done it. That's the kind of thing that why we're doing cold emails. Sure, we can apply online, but like truth is, how many of those people are going to actually try to figure out who the hiring manager is, reach out to them and try to pitch them, right? Most of these get lost in a black hole. We don't want to go into that black hole. We want to actually reach out to these people individually. Now, oh yeah, something I forgot to mention about my cold email. I personalized it to him. So again, it's not the world's best cold email, but I relate to the fact that he went to Berkeley and studied something like I did. And yeah, it paid dividends. So who do you actually reach out to? Who should you reach out to? Well, yeah, you can hit up anyone, any recruiter, any CTO, any VP of engineering or data science, but you should also hit up your alumni network, because y'all have a lot of alumni that you're able to hit up. See, on the LinkedIn, if you just hit your alumni tab for your university, you'll find, hey, there's 236 people who really went to USF. And you can go right to Rachun, who's at Williams-Sonoma. You can go right to Yu-Ting and say, hey, Yu-Ting, I was looking at Hearth. It seems really interesting. I don't know what Hearth is, so let's ignore that one. We can write to Benji and say, hey, Benji, USF data science student here. I used to be a graphic designer. I love the intersection of data and design. I see you work at Adobe. Do you have 20 minutes to chat? Doesn't even have to be super long, drawn out. Oh, by the way, I built this generative AI project that combined my passion for art and ML. Here's a link, right? It's just got to be a few sentences, 4 or 5 sentences of Benji. And, and believe me, if you can also search your alumni by company. So if your dream company is Adobe, right? Because you love design, you love data, and you want to work there, you can go find other people at Adobe too. It just, there's, because of how big of a school USF is and where y'all located, like you have alumni at all these different companies. So I want to answer a few questions real quick. Scan that QR code. You're going to need this QR code for later stuff too. So anyways, just scan it and ask me a question or two. We'll do rolling questions, but I just wanted to just take a quick breather because I know I covered a lot. We talked about cold emails, portfolio projects, networking. So ask me a question real quick, and then we'll go keep moving along. But I want to just take a quick break and see what questions y'all have.
And if anybody's brave enough, you can use the microphones on either end as well and ask directly.
Yep. So that's my test question. And then you can upload the questions, and we'll keep the questions coming in a rolling basis. But yeah, feel free to ask me anything, y'all. I need one question before I can move on, to be honest. So you might as well just ask a question for someone else. Perfect. How many cold emails do you send out and how many replied? I think I send out maybe like 150 and like maybe 30 responded back to me. And then out of those 30, like 8 or 9 ended up, I was able to interview with them. But this was back in 2016. Like right now, things are a little slow, / companies are, you like good luck trying to cold email your way to Facebook right now, because it's literally just a complete hiring freeze there. And they just did a big layoff yesterday. So that's not going to work. But still, at your smaller companies or in industries that are not affected by all this stuff, like healthcare is doing just fine. Enough places in finance are doing just fine. Enough things in like traditional Fortune 500 companies, they're doing just fine. You can go shoot those cold emails and it'll work out. So yeah, 1 in 10, if even 1 in 10 reply to you, takes maybe an hour to shoot out 10 cold emails. So if it's like, even if 1 in 10 lead to a networking session, that's still a high use of your time. Being able to talk to alumni who are going to help you out, give you a referral. If you could even get one of those per hour of work, that's awesome. How does the ATS work? I think that ATS stuff is like quite, there's all these people trying to sell tools like, hey, show up on the ATS, or you're like, don't get flagged by the ATS. I think the ATS stuff is a bunch of BS, because the truth is, like, your resume, when companies are hiring by keyword, they're looking for keywords like Python. Well, you should already have Python on your resume, right? So it should be okay. Then they keep filter for maybe thing like SQL, but they don't ever filter like, yo, I'm trying to see who has written the word time series forecasting, right? They don't search like that, because at these big companies, think about like being a data scientist at Facebook, for example. There's not one specific skill that I'm looking or hunting for in my data scientist, right? It's not like, oh shoot, this person's a beast at neural networks, but doesn't know that much about time series forecasting. They're out. That's not how it works. So this ATS stuff and optimizing your resume for the ATS, I think most of it is just kind of fake pseudoscience. As long as your resume looks clean and has the keywords you think make sense, like Python or machine learning or pandas, right? You're okay. So I don't even bother with the ATS stuff. And lastly, I think of the ATS and all that stuff as a black hole. So anyways, if there's a company I really want to interview at, forget trying to game the ATS. Let's just go figure out who are the people I need to impress. Like at Oren, the CEO of SafeGraph, back when they were an 18-person company, I just had to shoot to Oren. I just had to shoot him a message. I don't need to worry about any ATS BS, right? Just shoot the guy a message. Is there an ebook version of Ace of Data Science interview? Nope, there is none. If you try to find a PDF online, you won't be able to, because we've never had an ebook. It's only physical on paperback. But if you want to practice online, you can also practice on Data Lemur. But there's no ebook or Kindle or anything like that for the book. Let's see. Let me answer one more question and we'll keep going. All right. I'll answer this first one. And by the way, y'all, you guys can upvote questions that you think are good or interesting. So that will help me prioritize them, because we already have a bunch of nice questions. So definitely upvote the ones you want answered, because I'll answer one more question right now, and then we'll answer some more questions at the end. But keep the questions rolling throughout this, because it'll just be on your phone. If you have scanned the QR code, the question thing will still be on your phone. But let me answer the top question that was there. Okay, I'll answer the top question right now. Do I think the job market is going to get better in 6 to 8 months? Maybe. Yes. I don't know. Things are kind of bad right now. But the thing is, like, who cares? Like, who cares in the sense, like, what can you do? Unless you can fix the macro economy, what good does it do, you know? The things we can control, like studying, programming, grinding out SQL on Data Lemur, practicing the questions in the book, building a portfolio project. Those are things we can control, right? So that's why I'm always just like, look, in a bad economy, these techniques work. In a good economy, these techniques work. And actually what I find is, for most people, the individual, like the determinants of success is far less the market and far more like, yo, the person who was making portfolio projects and has really good work, they're going to do okay now. And the person who sends cold emails, they're still going to do okay. Because yes, if you think that you're going to get anywhere without any projects and just blindly applying on LinkedIn to companies like Adobe that have 300 people applying to the same open position, then you're going to have a bad time. But you were going to have a bad time even a year ago or 6 months ago, and probably in 6 months you'll still have a bad time, right? Because the foundations are not there. So I'll answer the AWS one later. We'll keep going now, but keep the questions coming, keep the upvotes coming, and as we cover more content, keep using that Q&A tab to ask me questions. So let's talk about the technical interview process, and we'll get back to some of the questions later. Technical interviews, they cover a lot. Data science, analytics, ML interviews, they cover too many things. And that freaks people out, because they're like, yo, if they could ask me anything, is it even worth preparing for, right? Because software engineering interviews, they're a lot more straightforward. Hey, here's 2 questions, 45 minutes, get to it. And on-site basically looks like that too. The screening rounds, everything basically looks the same in the software world. Hey, here's 2 data structure and algorithm questions, go nuts. Data interviews, they can cover prop, stat, ML, SQL, coding, business and product sense, open-ended case studies, take-home projects. That's all part of the data interview process. But I would like to let you all know that don't freak yourself out and be like, yo, if they could ask me anything, there's not even a point studying. Because there is common patterns, common topics, and common questions that keep getting asked. And that was the whole point of why we wrote Ace the Data Science interview, me and Kevin, because we're like, hey, these companies actually have a lot of overlapping concepts and overlapping questions that keep getting asked. So that's kind of why we're here today, to kind of just spread the word about that and also cover a few of the top patterns that we've noticed. So one such pattern is where you explain your technical interview question, where you explain a technical concept as if you're 5, right? Or explain something in a non-technical way, or explain it to someone who only has a high school level math education, right? Why do companies ask questions like this in the interview? It's because they want to see that you know your technical stuff, but also that you're a good technical communicator. Because let's face it, data science is a super interdisciplinary role. You're always working with non-technical people, business people, people who don't know as much A/B testing and product experimentation as you do. But you still have to communicate with them and convince them that you're right, or that, you know, they should go along with what your analysis suggests. So that's why, to test this communication ability, companies ask questions like this. To practice, I love the subreddit Explain Like I'm 5, because it's all about using metaphors and analogies to explain these technical concepts in a simple way. So this is a great place to brush up on some of this, to just see like a masterclass in technical communication, and also just brush up, you know, what the hell are p-values again, you know? Another really common pattern that you're going to face is a deep dive into your past project or past work experience. And not like in a superficial way, like, oh yeah, tell me what you did last summer. Oh yeah, tell me about your research. But like a deep dive, like, yo, you picked this model. Why? What other models do you test? Do you have problems applying that model? How did you make sure your model didn't overfit? Right? So that's kind of what I mean by technical deep dive, not like a BS, like, oh, tell me about teamwork. Tell me about any personal challenges you had while working at your last job. No, it's not like that. They're going to go deep into the technical stuff you've done and keep pushing and pushing, because that's another thing that a lot of interviewers will do. They'll push you to see how far and how deep you can go. So there's a big thing like, oh yeah, I just imported it from scikit-learn because that's what YouTube told me to do. That's what a tutorial told me to do. And a more nuanced discussion around that and about, you know, picking the right model for the job. STAR is a formula that can help you for behavioral interviews. It's kind of where you break down your answer into a situation, task, action, result. But I think it's not just for behavioral interviews. I think that STAR is really helpful when you're also doing these technical deep dives, because it forces you to tell a story in a structured way. It forces you to kind of distill what you've done, your past meaningful work experience or project, distill it down into a clear structure, into a clear story, so that people can follow along. Because trust me, if you've done your master's thesis, you've worked at some company for 2 years, it's really hard to talk about something really deeply technical if your interviewer doesn't have context on it or didn't work in that industry. They might not know anything about what you're saying. So by making a spreadsheet like this before you interview, and on one column putting STAR and in the other column keeping some of your key experiences, and forcing yourself to distill what you did down into a 1-sentence situation, task, action, result, during the interview, you're going to crush it, because you've already done the hard part of trying to distill like a years-long project into a much shorter, like punchier story, right? Plus, you're not going to blank out on any of the numbers, because if you can get your key number here in that sentence and just kind of remember that, you're going to seem a lot more competent. Because the worst thing is to be like, yeah, 2 years ago, I worked at this company and I helped Safecraft make $2 million in revenue, or wait, was it 200K in revenue? Or, yeah, I used XGBoost because you know, you do that, and the interviewer loses you. They don't think you're confident, they don't think you're a good communicator, and they start to be like, yo, did you really do what you said you did if you can't even remember your number, or you're telling me the wrong number, or you can't even tell me why you use XGBoost, right? So doing this kind of spreadsheet exercise before you interview will help you immensely for these technical deep dives, for both the behavioral side, but also, yeah, when they go technical on these deep dives into your projects. Now, here's some common concepts that keep getting asked in probability, stats, and ML. One interesting thing I'd like to kind of clarify is, look, for a lot of data science jobs, you do not need to be a deep learning god. You really don't. Yes, transformer models are hot. Chat GPT this, GPT that, stable diffusion, all that stuff. Yeah, it's trending. It's great. But so much of the world, so much of the industry still uses regression, still uses random forest models. And it's okay. It does the job for a lot of different cases in a lot of different sectors. So your interview, You don't have to go freak out about learning about Q learning and reinforcement learning and RNNs and CNNs. You just got to know some of your basic traditional techniques down cold and know some concepts like overfitting down cold. And it's okay if you're not a deep learning expert, because a lot of companies just don't have the data or the expertise to even use that kind of stuff. So that's why they don't even try to grill you on, the latest and greatest in ML, because most companies don't do that. Most companies aren't doing the latest and greatest stuff in ML anyway. Transformer models, y'all, came out in 2017 in that Google paper. Only 6 years later are people waking up and they're like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, transformer models, that's how GPT and ChatGPT are working, and they work really well, right? Google was sitting on that for 6 years, sleeping on it. Yes, it was adopted by the industry, but it takes a while. So that's what I'm just trying to emphasize. Like, that paper came out in 2017. The core underlying technology of why ChatGPT is so powerful is the transformer paper, and it came out in 2017. So, you really, and that's the cutting edge at OpenAI, right? Like, that's a cutting edge product. So if you're just working a normal Fortune 500 company, you don't need to know this year's research. Here's a real question asked by Uber, Facebook, and D. Shaw. Uber one, pretty straightforward. Facebook one, I think, is kind of interesting because it's like about a card deck. Seems like I want to say brain teaser, but just sort of like not what you'd expect, like, because this is not what data scientists at Facebook do. So you might be looking at that kind of Facebook question and be like, yo, why are they asking me a probability question like this? Also, what kind of card deck has 50 cards? I thought card decks have 52 cards, right? So it's kind of weird too. So you might be looking at a question like that and being like, yo, Nick, this is kind of dumb. And I've had a lot of people tell me like, yo, this is kind of stupid. Like, why are we even doing this? But the thing is, I'm not here to tell you, is this a great question or not? I'm here to just tell you like, yo, this is what top companies ask in interviews. So you want a job at a top company, like, you got to do probability and statistics questions, even if you feel like they're not super relevant. So that's just a mental hurdle that I've had a lot of people come to me with. So just want to make that clear. Like, even I think it's a little silly that they're asking this, but it's what they're asking. So we're going to go solve it. I also like this DE Shaw question. So I want to talk about that one too. And actually, I'll have y'all solve this too with me. So let's look here. DE Shaw, this is where Bezos used to work in 97 before he quit to sell books on the internet. He was a VP there. He quit at age 30, 97. I'd like to think he got this question or asked this question. I don't know though. This is more recent. A portfolio analyst was asked this question at D. Shaw, but also data scientists and data analysts at this company at D. Shaw have also been asked the same exact question, because it's a pretty great question. So let's try it ourselves, actually. Scan this QR code real quick and vote. If I flipped a coin 1,000 times, right? And it came up heads 550 times, like, do you think the coin's biased? Yes or no? I know. It might be, it depends, but just what's your hunch? And I want to see at least like 30 votes come in. So, and greater than 30, right? Let me get a few more votes in. And yeah, if you ever want to ask questions, the Q&A tab's also right there and whatever. Cool. So most of us think no. Most of us think, nah, I don't think the coin's that biased, right? Because could have been 501 heads, it could have been 600 heads, right? Like, it's just noise. But we can both intuitively know that, like, yo, if it came out 900 heads out of 1,000 coin tosses, that's kind of sus, right? Like 900 heads out of 1,000 coin tosses. So we all have some sense of like, yo, there's some number that's too big of a number where you're like, yo, I think the coin's biased. Like, it shouldn't just show up 900 heads out of 1,000 coin tosses, right? But these are street answers. This is like what even a high school would be saying, right? But we're not high schoolers, we're data scientists. So in a real data science interview, it doesn't matter whether you said no or yes to this question. What more matters is how you explain your reasoning, how you explain your rationale. And because it's not the end result that matters, it's how you got there, you can get partial credit. You can, come to the wrong conclusion, but, if you've mentioned some of the key words and key topics and try to reason out your answer, they'll be okay with it, right? Obviously, you want to get the right answer, but still, a lot of this is about showing your work. So let me show you that example of here on this DE Shaw question, right? We can say, look, this is a Bernoulli random variable, and that we expect 500 heads out of 1,000 coin tosses. But we know it's not always going to be 500. There's some noise. there's going to be some variance. So can we compute the standard deviation? Can you compute the variance for a Boolean random variable, right? This is the part where high schoolers could get, to some level, but they won't start using the word like standard deviation. But we data people should mention that, right? And it's okay if you don't remember this formula. In a real interview, you can ask the interviewer like, yo, I forget what the formula is, but I'd look at the standard deviation, right? That's good enough in my books, because I know that if you can tell me it's a Boolean random variable and you can tell me you'd want to know the standard deviation, I'm sure in one quick Google search, you could find this formula and apply it, right? So it's not really memorizing this formula. It's like on trial. What it is just saying, hey, this is 3 standard deviations away from the mean. Okay, that's a pretty rare event. So given with this information, I think the coin's likely biased because it's quite a rare event, right? 3 standard deviations away from the mean. So that's kind of what a data science interview really looks like. And what I love about this question, so most of us, we said, nah, you know what, the coin's probably not biased, right? But if you computed that standard deviation, you'd be like, oh, no, I think you computed a z-score, you'd be like, I do think the coin's biased, right? What I love about this question is there's no deep learning here. There's no RNNs, there's no CNNs. You don't need to know ins and outs of Python pandas to answer this, right? This is just stats 101. Yet in a real interview, a lot of people will mess this up, right? We've all taken stats 101 at some point. A lot of us probably took it twice, maybe once in undergrad, once in college, maybe a third time here and there. I think I took stats in high school, stats in college. I think I took stats like twice. I don't know. Point is, even when you do all the stats, like there's still a different skill in interviewing well and practicing these interview questions because it can still trip up enough people. I'm going to skip the coding interview stuff. I think there's just so much out there on it already. The book Cracking the Coding Interview is also pretty good. So yeah, I'm going to skip the coding interview part just for time reasons, just because so many people on YouTube and everywhere have talked about coding interviews. I want to talk about SQL interviews because I feel like they're slept on a little bit. Because everyone, y'all are probably using Python pandas all day or maybe R and Dipler. SQL doesn't get as much love, but in the industry, people are using SQL all the time. And that's why a lot of companies, their first screening round might be a SQL screen, where they'll send you a HackerRank, Codility, or CodeSignal test, give you 2 questions in 45 minutes and tell you to go solve it. And the thing is, they'll send out that test to 100 people, 70 of them will fail. And then they'll go interview the 30 people who passed, right? Or they're going to then the human is going to read the 30 resumes, right? Up to a certain point, they just kind of give everyone the test, to be honest. What does that mean, though? That means it doesn't matter if you have a master's or PhD. It doesn't matter if you worked at Google or you didn't. If you can't even solve the SQL interview question, a human's not even going to read your resume at that point, right? You just get weeded out by HackerRank, Codility, or CodeSignal. So that's why I think practicing SQL is super important, because it's often used as an early round to weed people out. I actually want us to try to solve a question together. If you have your laptop, bring it out. If you don't, it's okay. We'll follow along. But I just want to give everyone like a minute to try to solve this question, because we'll talk about it. And I don't expect y'all to actually get the full answer in the next like minute or two, but I just want y'all to check it out. It's free. Like you don't have to even sign in to try this question. So if you just look at, go on Data Lemur and see this is like the 4th question on the homepage, or you can just search for it. You'll find it and let's work through it. So I'll give you guys like a minute to check it out. Yes. Yeah. So if you just go to datalemur.com/questions, you'll see this question, 4th one there. So I'll give you all a minute and we'll discuss it soon. And meanwhile, I'm going to look at the Q&A questions while you guys try to solve this, or at least look into it. Cool. I'll bring us all together in about a minute, in like 10 seconds. So I just want us to read the question and try to understand it and try our best, or at least think of a high level approach on how we'd go about solving it. Cool. So let's talk about it together real quick. Why is my computer? Oh, I'm literally trying to, that's hilarious. Y'all can see my screen, right? I was thinking the slides, I was thinking Data Lemur is my slideshow. So I was like, why are the slides not working? But I'm literally on my site. Okay, I'm screen sharing. We're back here. All right, so let's talk about this question. We're trying to make like a frequency distribution of tweets in the year 2022, right? So there's 2 people who tweeted once in that year. So that's users 254 and users 148. They tweeted only once. So we'll say there are 2 users tweeted once. And user 111, they tweeted twice in the year 2022. See that first tweet? That was made in 2021. So we're not going to count that. So that's why for the tweet bucket 2, we only have 1 user who tweeted twice that year. So that's what we're kind of doing. And if you notice, there's no join. There's only 1 table. So we don't even have to join to a second table. And this is the solution. What I want to call out, the bigger thing I want to drive here isn't, hey, here's the solution, here's why it's correct. What I want to point out is there's no crazy weird syntax here. There's no weird window functions. There's not a join. Yet in a real interview, you have 5 minutes to write something like this, a lot of people will make mistakes. Or a lot of people won't be able to do it because it's a test of problem solving. And you can do SQL tutorials over and over again, and they'll keep teaching you, here's how count works, here's how group by works. But there's a world of difference between knowing a function called count, knowing a function called group by, and then actually being able to turn a word problem into a SQL snippet like this, on the spot, under pressure, through a coding assessment, or if someone's looking over your shoulder in a real life interview, that adds some stress. So I just want to call this out that let's all go practice, because yes, Python pandas is cool. Yes, R and Diplo are great, but you just don't want to get screened out. And it's pretty easy, even without needing any crazy syntax or any window functions. Like 80% of people get this question wrong on Data Lemur. So yeah, it looks easy, and this is an easy question asked by Twitter, but 80% of people will mess it up. Because everyone says they've done a SQL tutorial, but it's a world of difference between doing that and problem solving with SQL. Yeah, you can check out a lot of these questions for free on Data Lemur. They have multiple hints too. So if your SQL is a little weak, I try to walk you through the problem solving approach, because that's much harder than, like, that's what's on trial. It's not the syntax. Let's talk about open-ended case studies now. This is another big component of the interview. Product managers, they also get asked these. Software roles, they have a more like system design type round, but basically at some point you're going to get this open-ended question, regardless of whether you're a data engineer, data scientist, product analyst, whatever your title is. You're going to be asked an open-ended question. And a lot of people, again, tell me, Nick, there's no way to study for these. They're open-ended. They could ask me anything. How do you even prepare? But the interesting thing is, there is a strategy to approach a lot of these open-ended questions, which is you always clarify what's being asked. You make sure whatever you answer is not just a generic answer, but something tailored to the company at hand and the product at hand. And whatever you suggest during the interview, proactively mention trade-offs or caveats, or, you know, things you'd look at if you had more time. Because they're not just trying to figure out, oh, in 30 minutes, hey, Nick, go make Uber search pricing algorithm. They're not just looking for that. They're not looking for a final answer. They're just trying to also hear, like, yo, like, whatever solution you propose, what do you think are the proposed downsides? Sorry, not proposed, expected downsides, right? Or, hey, whatever solution you proposed, you do realize you made some trade-offs in making that suggestion. Are you conscious about those choices, right? So that's the kind of secret to doing well on these, keeping that formula. And yeah, and I'll have some more tips on how to do these, but I think first it'll be better if we just try out a real open-ended question. If we do one, then the tips will make more sense. So this is a real data science question asked at Facebook. But again, product managers at Facebook, they could have been asked this too. Let's say we have Facebook dating. We've done a beta test in Brazil. We have about 3 months of data. And this app is sort of like for relationships. It's not for hookups. It's like Hinge. Like we're trying to have serious relationships formed through the dating app. Just as a hint, remember how Facebook makes money and remember what Facebook's mission is. And yeah, remember, there's no one right answer for what the metric you use. I mean, at a company like Facebook, you'd actually look at multiple metrics, and multiple metrics also have flaws, right? Because there's no one perfect metric, which means every metric is a little bit flawed. So let's actually try to solve this together, though. So I actually want to hear from y'all right now. If you were working at Facebook, right, and you were the data scientist of Facebook dating, what metrics would you use to define the success? Like to say that this product is working well in Brazil and that we should expand it to the rest of the world, right? Because fundamentally, that's what this question's about. See, if you worked at Facebook, Zuck is doing layoffs. He needs to know, should we be investing in your team or not? Should we be expanding this product? Does it have good product market fit or not? And if not, we're going to cut the team. So what are the numbers we look at so we can make these big decisions? Zuck doesn't know. Zuck doesn't know what are the right metrics to use for Facebook dating. It's actually the Facebook dating team that has to come up with some intelligent metrics first, rally the team around them and explain them, hey, here are the metrics we picked and this is why it's important, right? So I want to hear from y'all. And I need at least like 15, 18 answers, and there's no one right answer. There's no one wrong answer. So let's keep them coming in. And I'll start going through them in about a minute or two, but I want a lot more answers. And again, you could put in multiple answers. So a lot of good answers coming in. I want to see a few more before we start going through them. And again, I love these kind of questions because you don't need a PhD to solve it. You don't have to be a deep learning expert to solve it. And you could just be a really sharp person when it comes to product and business and crush it. And you could be really technically good and fail this, right? Because, you know, you might be able to run circles around someone when it comes to Python coding, right? Or data structures and algorithms. But if you can't do this, then hard to drive business impact and hard to get selected. So, yeah. All right, let's talk about a few of them. Okay, engagement, cool. Daily active users, monthly active users, that's cool. Number of people using it, fine. Churn rate. I see churn rate, you know? And I mean, I literally worked at Facebook on the new user onboarding team where I was trying to prevent churn all the time. I didn't want new users to churn out of the product. That was literally my team's mandate. But on a dating app, do we care about churn? Like, do I want you to keep swiping left and right all day long, forever and ever? Or do I want you to find somebody, you know? Hinge, the dating app Hinge, their motto, the app's motto is designed to be deleted. Like, they don't want you to be an active user for years on years. They want you to find someone and delete the damn app. So yeah, churn because the product sucks, that's bad and we want to track that. But you'd also want to give this nuance that, hey, look, churn is bad, but churn could also be good. Like if you're churning because you were really successful with a product, like we can't feel bad about that. So in a real interview, what's being put on trial isn't just, oh, you know that we want low churn. It's you thinking about, wait, in this context, some churn is bad, but some churn might be okay, right? So that's like kind of one of the tricks for this question. That kind of displays whether you're thinking about this question generically or you're really thinking, yo, it's a dating app where we're trying to form relationships. It's okay to quit the app because you found the love of your life. Okay, how often are we going to the Facebook dating part of the app? Like, is that what's drawing us to that? I have never heard that one as a metric, but that's really interesting. Like, that's a cool one, right? Because that shows like, yo, of the Facebook usage, more people are coming to Facebook for not marketplace, not the feed, but for the dating tab, right? So that could be really cool. Swipe conversion rate, that could be cool. But again, it's just hard to know. This is why we look at a battery of metrics, because it's like, okay, 5% of your swipes convert into matches. Do you think Zuck's happy with that? Sad by that, or indifferent? I mean, I have no fucking idea, because 5% swipes turn into matches. If the average user sends only 2 swipes, that means on average, no one is getting a match, right? Or if we find out, oh, it's a 5% conversion rate, and the average user sends out 100 matches. So they're every day they're getting like they're sending out 100 swipes, they're getting 5 matches. Maybe that's a great number. So this is again why I'm trying to say, you know what, swipe conversion rate, not a terrible metric or idea, but of course, these conversion rates or conversion ratios, it's hard. You can't just look at it by itself, right? Because, number of matches. Yep, that's cool. Right. I like this answer. How many people are using Facebook as a result of Facebook dating, right? So I don't know whether Facebook dating is a standalone thing. And this is what you'd want to clarify. Is this a standalone app? Is this a tab within Facebook? Because that definitely dictates how we think about the product. But let's go a little further. One cool thing that can happen is after you get matched with someone, you start talking to them on Messenger, Instagram, maybe WhatsApp. Facebook is a big messaging company. So we got to remember, Facebook isn't just Facebook. Facebook is Meta, like it's a ecosystem of products. So I like that this answer is kind of hinting at, hey, if Facebook dating can drive just overall usage of Facebook or any of the other messaging services, maybe that's a win, right? Yes, user rating. You could always survey users or just see how they're rating the app. That's kind of cool, but those are notoriously noisy because people are always downvoting Facebook and still using it, if that makes sense. Like they're saying, oh, app crashed, 1 star, and then they're addicted to Facebook, So we see that a lot. That's why user surveys for these kind of things is just so hard. Or if you look at the app reviews for Tinder right now or Hinge, you'll see so many 1-star ones like, I hate it, my ex-girlfriend, she was a total piece of work, I met her on Tinder, 1 star. It's like, That's the fun thing about user ratings and user reviews. It's just like, it's hard to know. And a company like Facebook where you can measure everything and you have literally the entire fun, like every action is logged, every swipe, everything. Like we'd rather look at the numbers than try to survey users because people are notorious about lying about their own usage for things, especially like dating apps, right? People are like, oh yeah, I don't really use Tinder seriously. And then meanwhile, low-key, they're swiping left and right, So I see revenue, subscription revenue. I saw someone said revenue, money. Oops, I keep clicking the next thing. You know what? I think that money does matter to Facebook, especially in these tight economic times, but this is a beta test in Brazil. We're trying to look for a product market fit. Do you really think Zuck cares about how much money was made in 3 months in Brazil from this new beta product? He knows he can, if the product is good, we can shove down ads. There might not even be any revenue. It might be free. There might not even be ads because we only add in ads and ad services after we know this product's good, right? When Marketplace launch or when Facebook live streaming launch, there's no ads. First, we're just trying to see if the product works. So that's another example of like, yo, revenue, that's a great metric for 99% of business problems at 99% of companies. But when we have a pre-product market fit question and we don't even know if there's product market fit, I don't think Zuck's going to can it because of revenue generated or not. There literally might not be any revenue, because if there's no ads, there's no revenue. And Zuck barely does any subscriptions, everything is ad-based. They don't really do a subscription thing. Someone once told me number of marriages formed, right? Because I was trying to hint that this is a marriage-related app, and I was always telling them like, yo, that's a lagging metric. No one made that mistake here, I think, today. But it's like, yo, we only have 3 months of data. We don't have time for people to get married, right? So even though we're trying to form marriages, like I can't measure that. And let's say I had 2 years of data. Still, how am I going to know if you got married or not? Right? Like there's no table called is married, or actually there could be because it is Facebook and they have relationship status. So maybe that's not too terrible. You could always ping that. But you understand, in 3 months, we can't look at that. So we might just look at messaging activity, number of people still talking to each other 14 days after they matched, right? that's a sign that, look, I don't know if they went on a date. I don't know how the date went. But yo, if I introduce two people and 14 days later, they're still, you know, flirting and talking with each other, that our job is done. We're happy, you know. We made two people who otherwise wouldn't get along or meet and know each other, right? So that's another example of like how we can't really look at marriages. We can't look at number of people got engaged, but we could just use messaging as a proxy, like continued messaging. So what's the secret to doing way better on these kind of open-ended questions, right? I think it's to use the damn product. See, example is if you were interviewing at Uber, right? And this is a real Uber data science question. They also asked this to ML engineers and data engineers. This question about how do you go about building Uber search pricing algorithm? If you could read the quarterly reports and use the app, like both the rider and driver side, because remember, Uber is a two-sided marketplace. Like you got riders and you got drivers, and you know a little bit about both. When you come into interview at Uber, you're going to crush it. And you better believe me, at Uber, they ask questions about Uber. When you interview at Facebook, they're going to ask you a question about Facebook, right? So it pays to use the product beforehand, read the engineering blog, get a better sense of how the company works and what metrics they care about, so that when you do get this open-ended question, sure, you don't know what the exact question is going to be, but you do know that at Uber, it's going to have something to do with matching riders and drivers, or it has something to do with search pricing, or it has something to do with the system at large, right? The other cool thing is if you do enough of this research before you interview at Uber, it's going to help you out when you interview at Instacart or DoorDash or any other of these marketplaces. Even a dating is like a marketplace, right? You're trying to match two people and there's a supply. Okay, let's say, yeah, you're just trying to match people, which is not crazy different than matching riders with drivers. So you do this kind of homework. Not only will you do better at Uber, but if you research enough companies and understand how they work, understand their metrics, read their engineering blogs, you're going to start to develop this business and product sense, which is going to carry you through any of the interviews for basically any of these open-ended questions or take-home challenges. Well, let's see the next slide. The computer is acting a little weird. There we are. Thanks for coming. This is the end of the content, but I'll answer a whole bunch of questions. But thank you again for having me all, USF. And hit me up on LinkedIn. I post daily. I have about 140,000 followers on there. I post a lot on Twitter too. Check out the book and go practice on data lemur. There's like 70 questions for free. So it's definitely worth checking out. Yeah, thanks for having me, and we can do some questions now. Cool. I can't hear, but I'm going to assume that was some applause, or maybe everyone is just getting fancy. Okay, good.
That was a plus.
Okay, so great. Yeah.
So now we'd like to open up the floor for questions, if anyone has any.
Yeah, and you can use the mic, but you can also type it in and get it upvoted, downvoted. Yes, I do resume roast. It's in my course. I don't really use YouTube, which is kind of lame because I should make a YouTube channel. Would I be willing to do one? To do one right now? Happy to volunteer my resume.
That's awesome.
Yes. Email me your resume to hello@nicksingh.com, and we'll try to do it together at the end for like 2 minutes. This will be fun. So if you want your resume roasted, do it right now. I also do one-on-one coaching. So like y'all don't, like 80 of you don't send me your resume and expect a response tomorrow. I'm literally going to my friend's wedding. I came back from the Indian weddings are like 3-day affairs. Going to my friend's wedding this evening and then all of tomorrow. So it's like, I'm not even going to roast your resume. So just send it to me now and we'll get it done in 10 minutes. And then after that, do not get pissed at me that I'm not reading your resume because I'm gone for the weekend. So, and I do one-on-one coaching, right? So it's like, I can only read so many free resumes before I'm like, but I'll do one for sure. Is it AWS certification worth it? AWS is one of the better ones. So maybe. Generally, a lot of certifications are not really worth it or not that interesting, but AWS still stands apart from being one of the better ones. So I think it'd be okay. But you definitely don't need to do like 11 of them because there's so many certifications. You don't need to do this and that. You can just get one and just put it on the resume and you'll be okay. Yeah. And if you don't want to go the certification route, but you build a side project and use a few different AWS services in that works for me too, right? Because at some level, I just want to know that you know something about cloud technologies, cloud computing. A per project works well for that, but a cert can also work. I talk a lot about portfolios. Do they need to be end-to-end, or is a simple Jupyter notebook with great explanation, should that suffice? Yes, that totally is not good enough. A simple Jupyter notebook with great explanations, the thing is, I'm not going to sit there and read your explanations, right? I don't have the time for that. If you send me a whole bunch of code, you send me your notebook, I'm like, bro, I'm not, but when I tell you about Rapstock, well, how do you feel about that? You're like, oh, shoot. Oh, really? Can I sign up? Yeah. Here's on my phone. Right? That's what I do in the interview. They'd be like, oh, yo, can I see it? I'm like, yeah, it's on my phone. Actually, I want you to sign up. And suddenly I'm so memorable, so much more interesting because all the other people have some dumb operating systems project or this dumb, Titanic prediction from Kaggle, right? That everyone's already done. Or what is that? Sepal length, iris data set project. It's like, yo, that's so lame. Who cares about flowers? Versus on the music, they're like, oh, yeah, I love hip hop. Yeah, let's see it. Oh, how does it work, right? That's kind of where you're wanting to get at. So you don't have to have a crazy technical project. It doesn't need to be a startup. It doesn't need to be 4 months. But let's say you love ML, you like recommender systems. You could just make up a simple site called, nickrecommendsmovies.com. Buy that domain name, build a simple recommendation system so that the user gets to put in 2 of their favorite movies. And then I'll recommend 2 based on the 2 you picked. I'll find 2 more movies that you'll like. That's what I mean by having a portfolio project that's done and polished and finished. Recommendation systems, they've been done 1,000 times. There are 1,000 APIs, 1,000 tools. That's not the hard part. The hard part is, hey, I want that URL. I want it done so that when I interview at Wayfair for their e-commerce thing, when I interview for Amazon, when I interview at DoorDash, for the recommendations team on DoorDash, or, the Spotify recommendations team, or a big part of any e-commerce site is the recommendations part, right? Recommending products to customers or recommending things post-purchase so that they can add on to their order, right? All that boils down to a recommender system. So if you can just show them like, oh yeah, I love recommendation systems. I actually built this fun one on my free time because I love movies. Here it is. Here's a link. And you drop that link in the Zoom chat. That goes 1,000 times better than you sending me a Jupyter notebook with beautiful explanations, pages of explanations where I'm like, yo, I'm just, yeah, whatever. I move on with my life. Hopefully that makes sense. What should you say if an alumni accepts your invite to connect? So definitely shoot that. You should be, instead of just hitting connect with an alumni, you should shoot them a message. Like when you send a LinkedIn, you can send a message with your connection request. You have to send a message, and you should be the one saying, hi, alumni. I'm also go to USF, study data science, saw your company's hiring, really interested in healthcare, and you work at a healthcare company. I did a project in healthcare, and I used to be a nurse before I came here. Do you have 15 minutes to chat? So I can learn more about data science and healthcare. I mean, that's like a 160 character message, maybe. Right? It'll fit in. Like I think on LinkedIn, you can only put I think 300 characters is like the max on the LinkedIn connection message. 300 characters, like what? 40 words, 2-3 sentences, right? What I just said was 2 or 3 sentences, and that's good enough. It shows that you're not random. It shows that you're alumni and you have a reason to be talking to us. Which is more important, Leak Code God or personal project? Both are important. I don't know, man. And I think Leak Code's pretty good for the Python stuff, but I definitely think SQL Data Lemur is better than Leak Code. That's literally why 70,000 people are using Data Lemur, is because everyone was kind of fed up because Leak Code does a few things weird when it comes to SQL. So I think just in general, practicing online, grinding through those questions is good, but I don't know. Have one good personal project, then do that stuff. You don't need 3, you don't need 4 projects. You just need one really good one. And then, yeah, then you can spend the rest of your time on interview prep. I'm skeptical of whoever wrote this portfolio projects. How do you add them in if there's not enough space? I'd be very skeptical on why there's not enough space. I get it. You want to keep it one pager, but I would love to know that resume because everyone's space has room for portfolio projects, unless you have 20 years in the industry. And if you have 20 years of data science experience, then yeah, you don't need a portfolio project because you've literally been doing data science for 20 years. But data hasn't really, this field hasn't been around long enough for any of us to have a resume that big. So, how do you find the manager who's in charge of the hiring process? It is very hard at these big companies. So definitely at Google, like don't expect a cold email to work. Don't expect, hitting up a random hiring manager to work because it's literally there's like committees on committees on committees. But at a small company, which back in the day when I was shooting that cold email to Snapchat and Airbnb, I mean, that was 7 years ago. There were smaller companies. I think probably Airbnb had sub 1,000 people. So the manager who was doing growth, there was only probably like 14 people working on growth. So it was really easy, just search Airbnb growth. So yeah, this definitely works at companies that are sub like 1,000, 1,500 people. You'll be able to figure it out. Also, you always know, like, even if you don't hit up the direct hiring manager, but you hit up the director, that's okay too, right? So even a company with 2,000 people, there might only be like 2 or 3 directors of data science. So it would be okay. I worked at Facebook, so it made an impact. Would it make any difference in the current market? Yes. So I think that is something that people always rightfully say to me, like, Nick, you're special. You're lucky you got to work at Facebook. So of course your cold emails work better than my cold emails. But the big, interesting, crazy thing from having done this career coaching gig now for a while is that so few people send cold emails that it doesn't even matter whether you worked at Facebook or not. Just the fact that you're reaching out to somebody, pitching yourself in a clear, concise way, and personally relating to them, doing that, because that's so rare, it doesn't even matter whether you worked at Facebook or not at some point. Like it helps. It definitely helps. It helps me get my emails read. But I'm just trying to emphasize, like, it is 90% more the fact that I'm even writing to a person rather than just saying, hey, Airbnb, I heard you pay well, just hit you up on random, right? Instead, I'm writing to the growth person saying my story about growth and how I'm so perfect for their job, right? All that stuff in the beginning. Remember how before I worked at Facebook, what was I telling, Spotify? What was I telling Facebook? What was I telling Uber? What did I tell Airbnb? That had nothing to do with what companies I worked at. That pitch was all about the work I'd done, right? So, let me do a few more questions, and then I kind of want to do the resume roast. Did anyone send a cold email? I can't see, but raise your hand. Sorry, did anyone send their resume to me? Okay, I see a few hands, so I'll try to do 1 or 2. That'll be fun. And yeah, my email is hello@nicksing.com. So, yeah. Let me answer one more question. I basically answered all of these. So let's go do the resume roast. And I appreciate whoever is a brave person doing this in front of all your classmates. I'm very impressed that you do that. And I think that's really good because you're going to gain some good feedback. So who cares if it's in public? I'm glad you are not too shy, if that makes sense. Yeah, so I like that. So let's go do that. Let me pull up my email and let me load up one of y'all's resume and see what happens. Also, I haven't even checked my email today because I was just at the wedding. Okay, I see from Adam and I see from Harsh. So I'll do both because there's only 2, but I'm not going to do more. So I'm just going to do Adam and Harsh. So you guys are the first 2. So I'll do that. We got Harsh here. Okay. Let me go back to screen sharing. And by the way, if you want to dip, you can dip. But let's see what Harsh has been up to. Obviously, I'd go talk to you and look at your LinkedIn because what's really funny is a lot of people are missing some details. So I would, in a real one-on-one, I'd like talk to you and try to suss you out, figure out what you're looking for before we do it. So at a high level, I'm already like, okay, this is a great resume at a high level, right? You got the technical skills down here, extracurriculars down here, great. I don't want that stuff leading up top. You got the fact that you were a data science intern right up front, perfect. And you were an SF, great. Because if I'm an SF employer and you're already an SF, I'm like, all right, dope, win. Then you worked at Quantify, Analytics, ML Engineer. Amazing. Amazing. And your project is order smart. You have even a URL. Baller. Here you have links to your GitHub repos. Amazing. One quick thing would be, instead of a GitHub repo, could I literally have a Tableau dashboard? Could I have something that visualized the 3 million chess games you did? Or can I build a cool, slick visual in Canva, an infographic, right? Because then I can go put that in the emails to people like, hey, I'm a huge chess nerd, so I analyzed 3 million chess games. Here's the summary. And you just literally put in that beautiful infographic, or you put in a GIF, right? Like I would literally link to Rapstock. That's what y'all can do. And these days, like when I interview, I literally just link to my book, or I send people a book. So that's what I mean. Like we can all say, yes, I'm very good at technical communication. When I apply to jobs, I don't say that anymore. I just said, yeah, I wrote a book. Here's the link. I can ship you one too. What's your email? What's your mailing address, right? What's the equivalent here? It's, hey, don't take it from me that I'm great at data science and that I analyzed 3 million rows. It's literally like right here. Here's a summary. And by the way, half these tech people are nerds and like chess too. So there's a good chance someone's going to respond just because they're into chess as well. You know, if you put up your chess analysis in the cold email itself. At a very high level, honestly, this resume looks good. So yeah, honestly, at a high level, you know what? Your technical skills look a little long. Like there's too many things here. And I'm like, GitLab, you know, I get writing Git, but like, Asana, like that's just task management. Like you can definitely cut out some of these. Because yeah, I mean, Asana, like you don't need a PhD to figure out Asana. It's literally you file tasks, right? It's like, so I would maybe cut out some of these skills, and then I would give a little bit of space, because your resume seems like too many things, if that makes sense. Not too many things, like feels a little busy. So you'd actually benefit from removing some of these randomer things. Because I'm like, yo, if you know Databricks, you know Airflow, then I'm sure you could figure out GitLab and Asana, right? Let me just look at what you did at Subwire real quick, and then I'll go to the next resume. And by the way, if y'all have to dip, you have to dip. Like, I get it. We're past time, but I'm having fun. Maybe y'all are having fun, so this is cool. Let's look at what you did at Subwire real quick. Use AW land function. This is not fair, y'all. Harsh, you're just trying to flex your resume. This is too good. You're doing everything right. You're quantifying your results. You're bolding the key things. You're keeping it very data-y, right? Your first bullet point isn't utilize teamwork to help Subwire, right? It's like a very specific thing you did. So honestly, I'm going to move on because Harsh, you're already crushing it. You're already crushing the game. So this was not fun because you're awesome. And yeah, not fun.
My resume is not nearly as good as that.
Sorry, what? Okay, I can't hear what y'all are saying. I can just hear some laughing though, but I don't know. But you can write to me in the Q&A. Yeah, or someone can.
Just go ahead and roast this one. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Adam. Let's see, man. Already I'm like, bro, you sent me a docx. Send me a PDF, man. What are you doing? Because now I don't even know if it's, I don't have Word on this computer, so I don't know if this looks weird because it's a docx preview, or is it just because your resume looks weird, right? So I don't know. Because I'm sure it's looking weird just because it's a docx, because I'm like, there's no way California is this whole line, you know? But if it is, let's go fix that. What else do I notice? And then I'm also going to guess that you're not, I'm hoping that this is a one-page resume and it just so happens to have overflowed here. But then again, I see this page 2 thing. And so now I'm like, bro, if there's a page 2, then
There's not.
Yeah, it's supposed to be one page.
okay, cool. Okay, cool. So it might just be the overflow thing. So that's a big lesson, y'all. Just always send PDFs, because people look up their resume. You shoot a cold email, they're looking at your resume on the go on their phone, right? And PDFs work great on the phone. DocX, good luck opening that on your phone, you know? So that's just a small thing. And then you don't have any of these formatting issues. Let me see, what else can I notice? Lawrence Livermore, I'm like, all right, dope. Nuclear weapons and stuff, physics, I love it. Business intelligence, okay. SQL reports into dashboards using Microsoft Web and developer. Okay, fine. Coordination. Yes. I would have hoped, because you were a computation intern and a graduate scholar. This seems real, but this one I'm like, this, like, I could say that too. Like, that's just fluff. So, and because your second sentence is kind of fluffy, like converted business into actionable analytics, I'm like, you were there twice and we only had one bullet point basically, because the second one's fluff. And if I'm like, yo, if the second bullet point's fluff, I better believe the third bullet point's likely to be fluff, even without reading it. But let me read it and not be an asshole and read it. Creation of a balanced, drillable scorecard for senior management dashboard begins at high level business units and drills deeper into specific organizational units. I don't know, man. I don't know. Seems kind of, I don't know, man. Go use Excel. I bet you used Excel somewhere, right? At least say something like, hey, did some analysis, financial analysis in Excel. Like if you use Excel there for a business intelligence analyst, like go put that in there. See if there was any other SQL work you did. Because I don't know, this feels a little light, no offense. But let's go look at Niagara bottling. Because it's okay, because I guess you were an intern. So it's whatever. It's fine. Niagara bottling. Okay. Support the scaling of predictive maintenance with survival analytics by integrating Litmus automation with production equipment and Microsoft Azure. Okay, that's cool. You know what I'm noticing is probably use Python here, right? Or R or something. You missed that part, right? So say something like that, because the keyword I have here is just Microsoft Azure, right? So this is why I'm so emphasis, like why I keep saying like, y'all, you don't need a crazy big programming language tool skills section, because anyways, you contextualize like, oh yeah, in your last job, you were using Python and Microsoft Azure, like you're good to go. You know what I mean? Like I get it that you know Python. So that's why I'm always like, it's better you contextualize it here than have me scroll down to the bottom and be like, oh, how do you do this? Okay. Tableau, great. I wonder, what's Service Cloud? Is that like some Salesforce type thing or some enterprise thing? Am I supposed to know what Service Cloud is? I don't know. I don't know. Data Science Environmental Defense Fund. Yeah, again, just put in Python there and mention what model, honestly, right? Or just mention like, give me something to hang my hat on, so that if I'm really into computer vision, or that you're applying to a computer vision role, you can be like, oh yeah, actually, when I was at Environmental Defense Fund, I did this, and this, right? So that you have some way to connect, right? Because again, if you're interviewing for a computer vision role and I see you've done some computer vision stuff, I'm like happy, and then I want to go deep, right? So give me one extra word or two here so that I can start talking about what you actually did. Oh, YOLO. Sure. Yeah, I think this is good. I think this is a good resume. I don't think that there's any too crazy things being like wrong, because I guess you're telling me it's a one-page resume. I really don't see too much wrong here either. I would have, you know what? I would love for one portfolio project, to be honest, because I don't know. This isn't like the coolest thing. Or you know what? I don't know. This seems light. This seems good. This seems heavy, but this seems light. So I just like want one more project, especially if you're trying to break into some other kind of role. I don't know. I just have one project because I don't know. It's hard for me to talk to you about this one. Okay, one last one. Okay, I'll do one more from Shubangi. Last one, I swear. And I got to go to my friend's wedding, y'all. I'm on the East Coast right now, so it's about to be 5 p.m. and the event starts at 6. So I got to get showered and dressed nice. And eat a lot of good Indian food. So I'm very excited. Okay, this is a good resume. Neat formatting. It looks a little bit busy. Like, see, the first thing y'all might notice, like I'm like on this resume, the first thing I do is I don't know. I just always scroll down because I'm just like, yo, how big is this resume and how wordy is it? Be honest. Don't even read anything. This looks like a lot of text, right? Like, can't you tell? Like, this is like a wall of text, like end to end, side to side, right? So I'm already like, yo, let's clean this up a little bit. So that's what I don't even know what to cut right now, but I'm just first saying like, yo, this is a lot, maybe too much. You know, something else interesting, y'all, it might not be making sense, but if you're really good, you can get away with having a short resume. Short is not the right word. You don't have to put every detail of your life and every skill in technology. You know what I mean? When you talk to Jan LeCun, he doesn't need to make an itemized list of every machine learning technique he knows, right? He's put out like 100 papers. He doesn't need to list 100 papers on his resume. Because he's Jan LeCun, you know, a leader in deep learning, like, I mean, half the people don't even need his resume, right? So that's just some kind of mindset. So I'm not trying to say, y'all, you don't need a resume. I'm just saying, like, just think about it. Like, y'all, if you're really crushing it, you don't need 6 portfolio projects. You just need one meaty one, right? You don't need 100 skills listed out. If you have one project that's really dope that you can talk about really deeply, that's all the skills right there, right? So there's just something to think about there. Let me just screen share for a minute, and then I'm done. Then I'm done, y'all. I gotta go party soon. I like that you put in some of these classes in there. I think the last resume we looked at, you could have mentioned a few of your classes that you took. That could have been cool. Is this, what is Operaton? Is this like I think I know this company. It's like in supply chain or returns or something like that. Logistics or something, if I remember. I don't know. Yeah, I like this. This is good. You know what? This is only a few months. And Salesforce development, like, do you even need this? You know, if you're applying to be a business analyst or trying to do marketing analytics or something, knowing about Salesforce is great and talking about this is there. But if you're just like looking for a normal data science job, I don't know if you even need this because it was only a few months long, right? And it was Salesforce related. So I don't know. I think we could cut it. Because see, this is what I meant by like, yo, the fact that you, data science person, know Salesforce is helpful sometimes, or it's helpful if you're applying at Salesforce, but otherwise, it's almost like a distraction. Like I'm like, yo, how do I, where has this person been a data scientist? You know what I mean? Like I've done weird jobs, right? Like I used, you know, I've done other things, but I don't talk about them anymore because I'm like, yo, that messes up the narrative, right? If I talk about how, oh, you know what, once upon a time I wanted to be a consultant and I was doing stuff with Deloitte. I did a small summer program, so it's not like a big thing I did, but you know, at one point I used to think like, oh, let me tell them about how I worked with, you know, did a summer program with Deloitte. I used to think that would be really cool. And then when I got into Silicon Valley, they're like, bruh, like what, you're literally trying to talk to us in startup land. Why are you even listening to this Deloitte thing? I was like, oh, it's because I did something cool there. And it's like, dude, it doesn't even, you know, it just confuses me more. Like, what is this person even doing? You know? So cut this out, maybe. Lead software engineer, this seems cool. Senior consultant, cool. Again, I noticed there's no project, which is okay, y'all. It's okay if there's no project. It's okay. But a lot of the people who can get away with it having a project have been a data scientist at FANG for multiple years, right? So you know what? I don't expect them to show me their work because, hey, you know what? They worked successfully at Square or Airbnb for 4 years, whatever. You know, who cares about their portfolio project? But here, it's like the only data science thing I see is this internship. So you could definitely benefit from cutting out this one and maybe cutting out something else and then thinning this out and then getting one project in so that you can show me stuff. See, this is the thing, right? This is cool, but this is just a technique or technology you do. We're humans. Whether you change the MAE from 5.1 to 3.78, like, I don't know. I just need more context. I need a link. I need something to hang my hat on. Like, where was this from, right? I guess you say health indicators for patients, but I don't know. I just want like a little bit more context here. Like, hey, doing a consulting project for, you know, the hospital, the Zuckerberg General Hospital in SF. I built a model to predict healthiness of patients for which I used blah, blah, blah techniques, you know? Yeah. See, that's the thing. I see these are multiple like projects, but I'm just like, again, it's hard for me to talk to you about this because it's like simulated Netflix data. There's no link, there's no context. So I'm just like, all right, you know, it's like fine, you just have it here, but it's just like, you know, it's not adding that much, you know what I mean? Because it's like, how do we talk about this? Like, if you simulated the data, I mean, how do you run an A/B test? It's like saying I ran a test on fake data. You know what I'm saying? Like, how does that even make sense? You're doing A/B test. Like, the whole point of A/B testing is to see, like, learn from users, to see what they're doing and see what features we should launch, right? So if you're making up your own data, then why would you do an A/B test, you know? Anyways, okay, we're gonna call it a day. This was fun. Thank you for volunteering your resumes. Overall, 3 resumes were solid, and I really appreciate everyone just volunteering it because I know it's kind of weird to get roasted, and like, I'm definitely not someone who always sings praises all the time and fakes. You know, that was a pretty genuine thing, so I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for.
Cool. All right, thanks, y'all. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Go check out the book, practice on data lemur, and yeah, I might throw a meetup in SF at some point later this summer. So stay tuned.
That was fantastic.